Hi everyone. Very happy to be live with Heather Critchlow. Would you like to start us off with an intro to you and your books?
Yes, hello, it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me. The book we're talking about today is Unknown, which is the fourth in the Cal Lovett series about a true crime podcaster investigating cold cases of missing and murdered people. Unsound and now unknown. So in this book, Cal Lovett is in the Loch Tay area of Scotland on the Highlands. He's on holiday, but he is walking in the hills when he meets an influencer who subsequently goes missing. And that kind of breaks open his interest in a case of another missing woman who was found on the hills 20 years earlier. And she has never been identified. She's buried in a graveyard nearby, but they don't know who she was, what she was doing there, and why she was killed.
I think this one made me realise what a joy you've got with Cal. And like the setup, because you can kind of go in any different direction with him. He's not like, you know, if you set him off as a policeman, he wouldn't have the sort of scope that he does.
Yes, it is much easier because he can just sort of disappear off to different places. And as a podcaster, he doesn't have a jurisdiction, which I think you would have if you had a police officer. And he doesn't have the rules that the police officers have either. He also doesn't have the access they have. So it's a bit of a weird juggle, but I really like it. I feel much more comfortable with him being a journalist than being a police professional, because I think I know a lot more about journalism than I do about policing.
Oh, he has help now, doesn't he? It's got a bit more forensics based, this one.
Yes, I was really wanting to do a bit more forensics in this one, particularly because I was inspired by a few different cases for this book. Things sort of came together. There was a case of a man a few years ago who was found dead on a hillside. And even in this day and age, it took them a couple of years to work out who he was. They knew he'd travelled there. They had CCTV footage of him, but nobody came forward to say, I know this man. Nobody kind of claimed him. And it turned out, I think he travelled from Pakistan, and they had some medication that was on his person that they were able to track down and work out who he was. And then there's also the case of, I listened to a podcast called The Bear Brook Murders, which was about some bodies that were found in a state park in New Hampshire in America. And these bodies were found in barrels in very deep forest. And the forest was so deep that actually there were two barrels, and one of them was found, and it took 10 years before the next one was found, even though it was only a few hundred meters away from the first. But they just couldn't identify these people. And this was sort of the beginnings of genetic genealogy being used in the way that it is now. And I think it was the same genetic genealogist, a woman called Barbara Ray Venter, who then subsequently helped identify the Golden State Killer, Joseph DeAngelo. And I was just really interested in this technique of using DNA, but also using family history. And I think they sort of follow a family tree with very, very distant relations. And when they get stuck, they'll kind of ask around and see if somebody will give them some DNA. And then they set off again and they follow the branches. And at the time that this was done, it took many, many thousands of hours to get the answer. But I think now the technology we have, even just a few years later, it can be done really, really quickly. So, yeah.
Interesting. Sarah has said hi.
Hello.
So has Donna. Patsy has said hello. She said she loved Unsound. It's in her neck of the woods.
Yes. Patsy came to a couple of events actually that I've done, one in Edinburgh and one in Perth. And yes, Unsound is the Edinburgh book. I really enjoyed writing that one.
I mean, they're kind of very Scotland based at the moment, aren't they? Would you take him back out? You any plans to take him anywhere else? Because he can travel anywhere in the world, really.
He can do. So at the moment, the plan is to write 5 Cal books, and all of them are very much linked to Scotland. So the books start out, Cal doesn't live in Scotland, but by book 3, he is living there. And yes, I think the series is so kind of inspired by Scottish landscape and Scottish locations that it's really nice, and it's a good excuse for me because I don't live in Scotland anymore, and so it's a great excuse for me to go and do research. Which I did do for this book, actually, for Unknown. I'd been to Loch Tay because I grew up in Aberdeen, and my first holiday that I had with my friend when we were 17, without parents or anything, we drove down to Loch Tay and had a few days at Loch Tay, and we cycled around the loch and we did all sorts of stuff. And then last May, I took my family back there just to kind of see if it was as I remembered and to scout locations. And I had quite a chunk of the book written by then, so it was really useful to be able to go and drag my children up mountains in the name of research.
Do your family get excited about helping you find places where you can leave bodies and things?
Do actually, yeah, they did really, really well. We went up Ben Lawers, which is in the book, and the day that we chose to go up it was probably what we thought was going to be the best weather, and turned out not to be. And the clouds and the mists came in. I needed to see the views from up there, and you couldn't see a thing. It was just pouring with rain. So the dog and the children, we made it to the top of Ben Lawers, and the plan had been to sort of drop off and go down to there's a lochen in the book that's a very significant location in the book, and we were sort of planning to drop down to the lochen that inspires that. My one in the book is much deeper than the real one, but we couldn't see, it wasn't safe. We couldn't even see a way down. So 2 days later, I took them back again, and we walked in again to the loch, and they did it with great humour. So, yeah.
Donna says she thought she gets about, but you've made her dizzy the places you've been this year.
Yeah, zipping about the place. I do quite a lot of I mean, my mum still lives in Scotland. I've got family in Scotland. So when I'm up, I do try and kind of visit bookshops and go around the place. So yeah, it's really nice to do that.
So you said the plan was to have 5 Cal books, which means we've only got one more to come, which is a bit sad.
I mean, I'm not going to kill him, so it would be possible for me to revisit Cal, and I might well do that, but I've got some standalone ideas and some other things I want to write. So it feels like 5 is quite a nice number for now. And the 5th one will be out next summer, I believe. It's called Unseen.
And it must be hard to keep coming up with titles begin with a U.
I'm reassured by my editor that she has a long list, and that the titles would not be a barrier to the number of books.
Patsy's asked you about a sequel to the Tomorrow Project.
Yeah, so it's not going to be a sequel, but I am writing another book in a similar sort of environment to the Tomorrow Project, because that was a sort of 2-book deal for that genre. So after I've finished off Cal 5, the next job is for me to plunge into that. Don't ask me what it'll be.
Well, I'm kind of interested in like how you find sort of the little research rabbit holes and things that you sort of investigate in these books, because you were talking about genetic genealogy, which I mean I find interesting. I'm a geneticist, so I would. Yeah. But like, where do you find all these like bits of information out? Do you have like experts who help? Do you have?
Sometimes, so it depends on the. So this book required quite a lot of aviation research, and my brother used to be in the RAF, so I sort of started with him, and I got him to sense check a lot of the things I was doing, and then I was online a lot researching that. The genetic genealogy was a combination of listening to quite a few podcasts where it had been used, and the science, and then doing reading around that. This book, out of all of them so far, is the one that's required the most research, to be honest. And yeah, at times it was quite, looking into isotope testing and all of these things that I don't, I'm definitely not an expert in, and just trying to get enough knowledge to make it plausible. I mean, I get my inspiration usually from lots of different news stories that I've seen or things that I've read about that just stack up in my head, and some of them might slot together. So it's rare that I'm writing about one particular case or one particular thing. It's kind of a combination of little bits of things, like a magpie picking things up, and then I have to do the research to make it work, basically. So yeah, it was hard work. I didn't set out in my early books, there's not a lot of research, because I love the writing. It's the actual physical writing bit that I most enjoy. But the more I've gone on, the more I've had to understand and appreciate how sophisticated readers are, and that you really do have to check once you move out of your comfort zone, which I think you do when you write more books. You're not just writing about the things that seem easy to you. Then there's a lot more fact checking and research, and this one had things like police diving and all of those sorts of things as well that needed checking out. Thank goodness for the internet.
I was talking about this earlier today. A very nerdy conversation with my husband. About whether, across the genres we have different expectations of the accuracy of authors. So like in crime, people expect a lot of the facts and the science and things to be correct, and they know enough to question that if it's not right. In like sci-fi, you want it to be plausible, so people to have enough knowledge of the things. But would we expect the same if someone wrote like science into a romance book?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think also readers are so different. There are people who it really does matter to, all the little details, and there are other people that are much more interested in the character and the overarching story and aren't so bothered. I think crime particularly needs to be, I don't think it has to be 100% accurate, because if you're writing a police procedural, it would be so boring to write how it would actually work. And also the time frames, that's something I really find with the Cal books. These cases that he investigates in real life would take years to do, and he's doing it in the summer, in his holiday. So that's something that very much isn't accurate in my books. But like you say, it's a kind of plausible, you kind of have to, some things I think readers will forgive and will go with you. But if you put something in that's very jarring to them, then it kind of pulls them out of that, I think, and understandably so.
Do you, because there's an overarching kind of storyline across all of the books, isn't there, about Cal's sister? That we're not giving anything away by sort of saying that, because it's in the first book.
Yes.
Will that be answered by the end of book 5?
So there is definitely a resolution to his, and this is a reason for the 5 books, I think, because that particular story arc for him, I don't think could really be dragged on and on and on and on without giving readers some sort of finality to it. So yes, the idea is that it may not be tied in a neat bow, but at least you will have some sort of sense of a result. And I think you start to get that a little bit more perhaps in book 4. I won't say anything that's too spoilery, but yes, it's a bit of a balance, because some people come to the books, they'll start at book 3 or book 4, and other people have obviously been there since the beginning. So trying to balance not too much, the idea is that they can be read as standalones, but that loyal readers will get the crumbs that they're looking for.
I think that kind of works. I started with book 2 and read book 2, 3, 1 and 4.
Oh, did you? Is that the way you did it?
I couldn't find book 1 for ages.
No, I think it's weird as well with the series, because I hope that I get better with every book that I write. And so in a way I look back at book 1 and think, oh, I could do better now. But then a lot of people, when you have a series, are starting with book 1. And so, yeah, it's quite interesting, that sort of feeling of the work being read. And obviously some people as well read really quickly and will read them all in a couple of days when they've been written quite sort of widely apart. So yeah, it's lovely though. It's I didn't really set out to write a series years ago when I started writing, and I think there's something quite special about a series, that people take to your character and kind of go with you and feel quite passionately about them and their journey. And I know I do that when I read series as well, so it's really nice to have that.
I think it lets you sort of dive into the characters more, and you get, like there's a whole kind of collection of characters in these that you're sort of interested in coming back to every time and seeing.
Yeah.
Happening.
Like, what are they up to now? And I think I'm so interested as well in characters that are complicated, and very few of my characters are sort of wholly good or wholly bad. And the series does give you a chance to have them make mistakes and come back to them, and they learn things. And Cal is always making emotional mistakes and doing the wrong thing with the people he loves. And he's very well-meaning, but he doesn't always get his relationships quite right.
Yeah, he does have a long-suffering partner, doesn't he? He's not quite always on the ball with.
No, she's very long-suffering sometimes. But then the thing I like about him, and that I wanted him to be from the beginning, is really comfortable with strong women. Really kind of, he has very equal relationships. He's surrounded by strong women, and he always has been. His sister, who disappeared when he was a boy, was the sort of archetype for him, the model of a strong, independent woman who was ahead of her time. And so he's really drawn to those kind of people, and his daughter and his partner, and the cases he picks as well. He kind of, he loves and appreciates strong women, doesn't feel threatened by them. And so that was really important to me, that I hope we forgive him some of his mistakes.
Tell us a little bit about the Tomorrow Project, because I think there are some comments coming in about that. Well, I go back and check what questions we got, because there's lots of comments.
Yeah, the Tomorrow Project was, so I started that actually before I got published. I had a few books out on submission that had come close but not been picked up by publishers, and I was kind of at a low ebb and despairing a little bit about publication. And I just thought, I'd started writing. This idea came to me because my children were quite young, and I was explaining World War II evacuation to them, and they were horrified at the thought that children were put on trains with no idea when they got to the other end who would be looking after them. And I got really upset telling them about it as well, because I never really thought about that from the parents' perspective before. And so that's where this kind of idea started, really. And in the book, it's 2050, there's a terrible virus hitting the world, and the British government, as a precaution, starts evacuating children to camps in the countryside to keep them safe while they develop a vaccine. But gradually countries in the world succumb to this virus, and the right-hand woman to the Prime Minister is involved in the British efforts to kind of come up with some sort of solution. And she realizes that the government is cherry picking which children to save and which to allow to die, and she can't stomach that. So she starts smuggling children out onto the trains who would otherwise not be saved. And just before London falls, she gets one last child onto a train. And then the book follows the fate of that last child, who is in the camp, and it sort of follows what happens, because 10 years after the children are put in the camp, they're still there and nobody has come for them. So yeah, it's in some ways bleak, but there's a love story in there. There's a couple of love stories in there. There's quite a lot of hope and redemption, and it became just a kind of way back to loving writing, really, at a time when writing wasn't going so well, and I had to put it down. I had about half of it, I think, when I got my book deal, and I had to put it down so I could write Cal 2, Unburied. And then I was supposed to go straight on to writing Cal 3, and I just thought, well, it'll only take me a few weeks. I'll just finish off this dystopian mad thing I've written, and it took a bit longer than that. So yeah, I had to slightly delay my Cal 3 deadline, but it's all turned out okay.
It is. It's sounds like an interesting book. I like dystopian fiction.
I love dystopian fiction. It's yeah, those are the stories that really, really grip me. Dystopian stories are the ones that I cannot put down. There's another one coming up that's a little bit along the same sort of theme, but 59 Minutes by Holly Seddon, which isn't out yet. But that's probably the most recent one I've read, a sort of post-apocalyptic or apocalyptic story. And that was just, I sat down to read 10 minutes of it, and that was me on the edge of my seat, kind of tearing through this book, desperate to know what happened. And it's really beautifully written as well, but I was sort of I wasn't really taking in the beautiful prose. I was just like, oh my God, what's going to happen? So I do love those stories.
Angela said hello. Donna said, what was your journey to publication? She thinks she saw the other day it took a long time to get published.
Yes, it did. I'll try and do the really quick version. So I started writing when I was 17, and I sort of wrote in secret because I didn't know, I was curious as to whether I could write a book or not. And so over 2 or 3 years, I just wrote little bits and gradually had enough to have a full manuscript that I sent out to agents, and they quite rightly rejected that because it was terrible at that stage. So then I did some courses and things, evening classes in writing. But I had a couple of horrible rejections, and my job was taking off, and I had children, and everything just got very busy. So it was only about 8 years ago that I've been writing all the way through, but never showing anybody anything, never doing anything with it. And then I did an evening course with the Writers and Artists Yearbook, and we did 10 Wednesday evenings. And from that, you had to have a full manuscript for that course that you would then work on in the course. And at the end of that, I was in a position to start submitting to agents. But it was still quite a twisty journey beyond that, because I've had 2 agents. One agent worked with me for 18 months and then changed her mind, found another agent. She's brilliant. She's my Charlotte Seymour is my agent now, and she took out 2 books for me on submission to publishers before we sold the third one, which was the first Cal book. So it was not a quick process.
Sarah says she loves Cal's daughter.
Yeah, I love Chrissy as well. She's she's kind of got an old soul in a way, I think, Chrissy. She's so sensitive to, she's got a father whose sister went missing, and is very scarred by what happened to her aunt, but she is the spitting image of her aunt as well. So she's got that she's such a lovely reminder of those things, and genetics passing on these qualities as well. But no, I really love Cal's relationship with Chrissy. I think that's a really important part of the book. And there are certain times, probably book 3 particularly, where it comes under a bit of tension, but that's a kind of sacrosanct thing, his relationship with his daughter, I think.
I think Chrissy and Rocket are 2 of my favourite people.
I know, Rocket the dog. Oh, I never really thought about it when I started the series, but Rocket's probably quite old now. But I've been ignoring that issue. He's because he is very important. I love Rocket. I have a Labrador myself, so yeah.
I think, interestingly as well, Chrissy's sort of someone who has developed so much over the course of the books that I kind of wonder if there's a future series with her carrying on her father's footsteps.
Yeah. There's definitely something I've thought about, a Chrissy spin-off. By the time we get to the end of the series, she's helping him quite a lot anyway. So yeah, it would be a natural. I'm quite intrigued by that idea. I don't know how Cal would take it. He's very supportive of his daughter's career, but yeah, she'd
be very worried about her safety.
Yes, I think so. And he's but very proud, because she's kind of, as a character in the books, she sort of started out at school and teenager, and she's gone through her exams and boyfriends and university, and now she's kind of coming out. She's at the sort of later stages of university at the end of the 3rd book. So yeah, she's definitely probably had the most change of all the characters.
Well, yeah, I just, when I got to the end of this one, I was like, oh, that'd be a really interesting way for that to go.
Well, my husband thinks I should call them all, instead of unsolved, unburied, it should be solved, buried, sound, known. So maybe Chrissy can have a mirror image series.
Yeah, I mean, whether she'd go into the exact same thing as well, because again, because it's a podcast series, it could be a different aspect of crime or something else. I think it is just such a unique idea for a series. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it does give a lot of scope for different twisty ways you can go, I think.
And it must make you stand out a bit more in the kind of crime genre as well, because I can't think of that many. Nick Quantrill's got a book with it.
There are quite a few. So Val McDermid, there's in one of the Karen Pirie books, there's a podcast. Denise Miner's written a podcast, a series. Matt Wesolowski, I hope I've said that right. He's got a series about podcast, which is really clever, because he just has it as the transcript of the podcast, which, when I had the idea, I'd initially thought, maybe I could do something like that. And that's really very difficult to do. So I just have these little extracts of the podcast running through it. But yeah, there are some out there. And then there's some US writers as well that have done some quite good ones. But yeah, it's there's not as many as there are, say, police officers yet.
Patsy says she read your book Tomorrow Project in a day.
Oh, that's really lovely to hear.
It's not a question, but it was worth reading out, wasn't it? It was a good.
Thank you.
They're the kind of comments you want to hear. Sarah wants to know who your favourite author is, childhood or adult.
Oh, I find this really difficult. I sort of panic because I want to say so many. So I don't know about picking a favourite, but one book that really resounded with me in recent years was The Stranding by Kate Sawyer. She wrote, it's a post-apocalyptic story about a woman who is abroad when the world kind of ends and she survives. She crawls into the mouth of a dead whale, a beached whale, with another man who's on this beach, and they're the only people left in the world. And it's a really, really beautiful book. So I love that. But I find it really, I don't reread very much. I used to, as a child, reread a lot of books. I reread The Hobbit the most. I think I must have read that. I've probably read it too many times. I can't read it now because I just know it so well. I must have read it 20 plus times. But now I just find there's so much to read that it's always like the next thing that I'm reading that is almost my favorite.
Isn't it? I reread some books, but only like my favorites.
Yeah. I think it's really
need the kind of brain relaxing.
Yes. I think it's really good for authors to reread books. I keep meaning to do it because I think then you can dissect, if you pick a book that you really love and you can dissect a little bit more how the authors achieved that. I think it's really useful, but I'm always racing on to the next thing.
Leslie said that Tomorrow Project has been on her list for ages, but she's waiting for the mood because she finds dystopian fiction unsettling.
Yeah, I'm the same actually.
Sometimes.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I have to, I think there are certain books and also podcasts for me when I'm doing the research. I mean, I love true crime podcasts, some of them, which is why I sort of created Cal, but there are definitely times where I can't listen because I do find them so haunting and absorbing, and I get very caught up in the families and the victims and the quest for justice, and those are really big themes of the books for me. But I do understand the need to be in the right frame of mind.
I like the crossover in this one with other influences as well, so things that aren't just a podcast.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting. So I was like, that also got me because I was like, are we going to see Cal sort of venturing off into another form of social media, or?
Yeah, he'd be so uncomfortable with social media, wouldn't he? Yeah, that influencer on the hill was actually a very late addition to this book. It didn't really, there was another character in the book, particularly all of my books are different. I found the second half of Unknown just came really, really easily to me, and the first half was the real problem. With the book I'm writing at the moment, it's been the exact opposite. But I did a big structural edit as the first edit for Canelo, and I'd said to them, I need quite a long time, and they gave me quite a long time, and that was fine. But I sat down to read it just 5 days before it was due in, and I read it and just thought, oh no, this isn't quite, it's not bad. It wasn't a bad book, but I read the first half and just thought, it's not good enough. And so I took the decision at that moment to rewrite a significant chunk of the first book, and I got rid of a character and I introduced that influencer character into the book then. And I think there'd been a sort of mention of an influencer or something, but she then came much more center stage at the beginning of the book. But that was quite a hairy few days of 1 a.m. typings to get that done. So yeah, I possibly didn't think about her as much as she was very much just right, go, write her in. Whereas, yeah, it's quite fun to have an influencer in there.
And Donna says, what author or book festival guest have you fangirled over the most, or any you've been too scared to approach?
Sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
She said, what author or book festival guest have you fangirled over the most, any you've been too scared to approach? While you're thinking about that, I'll tell you mine. when we started doing these, mine was Sidmore. I absolutely love her Essex Museum series, and she agreed to come do an interview with us when we first started out, and I was so excited. I kind of like bounced around the house for a bit before I did the interview.
Yeah, it's funny when you're at festivals, isn't it? And you see these famous people. It's crazy. So I think probably Denise Miner. She's just brilliant, and she's so funny when you see her being interviewed. So I think, and then the other one would be Claire Fuller, who isn't a crime writer, but whose writing I've just loved since she wrote a kind of post-apocalyptic novel. Her first book was about a girl who was taken by her survivalist father into the woods and kind of told that there was nobody left in the world except them. And since then, I've loved her writing. And I met her at the Winchester Writers Festival. And I just thought, when I went to the sessions she taught, I thought, oh, she's going to be mobbed at the end, and nobody, won't be able to speak to her. And nobody went up to her at the end of the session. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And she was so lovely. So I just went and told her I loved her books. Unashamed.
Thing, isn't it? Was it when she was like first starting out? Would it be different now? Because I remember going to see Ellie Griffith in Waterstones, and I think me and my dad were the only people who went, and we spent ages talking to her, and it was lovely because we loved her books.
Oh,
if
that's
now,
yes, yeah. But then I think it is fun when you end up at those events where there's not very many people in the audience, and it's a much more intimate like chat with people. It's really good fun. And I mean, I don't think I've met any authors who've had airs and graces like when you talk to them. They're just normal people, but you build them up in your head, don't you, just to be this incredible, these people whose books we've been reading for years. It's really fun.
And Patsy has congratulated you on your McIlvenney long list.
Thank you.
That must be so exciting because that is such a good prize list. That and the debut prize. So many of my favourite books come from those.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't believe it. I didn't have any. It was not in my head. I didn't know that. I know my publisher does put me forward for things, but I didn't know they'd entered me. And then Bob, who organises Bloody Scotland, phoned me, and I just thought, oh, that's really strange. Why Bob's phoning? Maybe he's had a dropout from a panel or something, and he needs someone to step in. And he told me, and I just, I had a really nice week actually, where he said, don't tell anyone because the announcement is going to be. So I told my husband, but then I just had this little kind of, I'm on a list with these amazing people.
Oh, such a good list as well, because I saw it and got the announcement kind of from Fiona, and it was like, it's so exciting, and I was like, there's so many. I was so chuffed to see your name on there because it's like, when you followed a series, like you were saying, you followed a series for so long, and you finally see someone getting some recognition for it. It's a really nice thing to see.
It was really nice. I think it's really funny that I think 12 out of the 13 books have sort of bluish covers as well. So they're doing all these displays of them, and they all look like it was planned. There's a trend in publishing, these particular cover colours. It's funny.
I thought your covers always stand out quite nicely because we've got like a nice bright coloured title.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know what colour they're going to do for the 5th book. It's always a bit of a surprise to me when the cover comes through. Yeah, no, they are good. They're very moody. I was
going to ask you if they're a little bit based on the places, but then you said the Lochan is different.
Well, no. So the Lochan is the shape and the size that it is in real life. It's just in my book, I made it really deep. So it's not that deep. But yes, the cover. So I've got a copy here. So the Loch, I sent them because we'd been there. I sent them pictures of it and just for atmosphere for the designer, and what they've come back with is so close. It's the absolute atmosphere of that Lochan, and it's really not far off from how the feel of the place is there. So that's worked really well.
You've been asked if you're at Bloody Scotland.
I will be there. Yeah, I am. I always really enjoy it. So I'm definitely going up. I'm doing an event in Aberdeenshire the night before, the 11th, whatever the Thursday is, which I think might be the 11th. I'll be in a community bookshop called Orbs in Huntly, which is literally where the first book is set. You can kind of see Benahee, the hill from there. So I will be there with Emma Christie. We are doing a little Huntley event and then driving down to Stirling for Bloody Scotland.
While you're up there in places like that, are you tempted to sort of have photos for your readers who've maybe not been there? I've never been as far up in Scotland as Aberdeenshire.
Yeah, so there's quite somewhere actually. Should repost it at some point, but I did in the first book. There's a waterfall that features in the book, and I did a video and a reel about. I went back and found the waterfall, and unfortunately, because there've been so many storms in Scotland, all the trees around it had kind of fallen down, and you almost couldn't reach this waterfall. So I had to climb up this hill and kind of come down a stream, following it, looking for where the waterfall was, but. It's there. So yeah, I always really like to take pictures of places that have inspired me.
Patsy said she'll see you there.
Hey, good. There's it's a really amazing program this year, actually, the Bloody Scotland program. I'm struggling to. I think I've probably booked as many event tickets as I should, but there's more that I'd like to go to. It's a really strong program.
I haven't seen all the programme, but mostly because I can't make it to Bloody Scotland for most of the thing because of my job, and it always it's slightly depressing because it's one festival I really want to go to.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because it's quite a long way to go just for the Saturday, Sunday. So no, it's probably better not to look.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I saw that Terry Deary's there, and I love his Actually I'm a Murderer book. That was really good.
So I think quite a few of their sessions they do broadcast online as well, so you can see some of them live streamed.
Donna says she's looking forward to seeing you in Stirling as well, and we'll cross everything for you to be shortlisted.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, but that's really lovely. Thank you. I'm counting it a serious win to be on that long list. So yeah, no, I will. I think the shortlist will be announced a week or two beforehand. So by the time it's Bloody Scotland, I can relax and watch someone else win.
You will be surprised. The number of people we've spoken to who said that and then have ended up on the shortlist.
Yeah, it's a very, very strong list. So it's just lovely to be on there.
It's always a very strong list.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I will keep my fingers crossed as well. It'd be good to see you on there.
Thank you.
It's good to see Canelo Authors doing well as well, because it's such a good publishing house for crime. There's so many good crime authors with Canelo.
Yeah, it's got a really strong crime imprint, and it's really nice to be part of that group of authors.
Are you being asked if you're going to karaoke at the Coup?
I'm not going to karaoke at the Coup. I cannot
say last year.
So, yeah, no, I've never done the karaoke at the Coup. I'm never organised. You have to be very quick off the mark to get tickets for that one, don't you?
I have no idea. So what you say you're going standalones after Cal 5?
Possibly.
Maybe, possibly. Would you keep them in the crime genre, or are you going to veer off into other ones? Because I think I'd be interested to see what else you'd write.
I think I probably am happiest in the crime dystopia or kind of book club fiction that's a bit haunting, or that kind of area. I couldn't see me. I'm not going to go veer off into romantasy or anything. But I do have 2 or 3 standalone ideas that are very crime based. So my guess, once I've done the other dystopian book, I will be doing a crime one after that, I think.
Would you go more traditional crime, or would you always keep it being quite an unusual investigator?
I'm just trying to think about the ideas that I have. They are not traditional in terms of police protagonist type ones, no. So I suppose there is one that was possibly close to that, but that's one that I'm probably looking back at bringing back a character that I've written before, and so I don't know whether that'll happen, but if it did, that would be the closest one. But yeah, I feel I very much have this barrier in my mind if I've got one more after the Cal 5 book, I've got one more contracted book that comes after the Tomorrow Project, and so I'm not allowing myself to think too much outside of that. And that's due in next April, and then I will suddenly have this blank slate to do something different.
I think the thing that I find really interesting in your books is like it is often much about the impact on the people surrounding the crime.
Yeah.
And the people investigating it is about the events themselves, which is a really like interesting way of looking at things.
I think that's very much what I'm interested in. It's the ripple effects of crime. I'm always wary of glamorizing criminals or murderers or, you know, those sorts of things. It makes me feel quite uncomfortable, and I tend to identify more with the victims and the families, and I feel very I guess haunted by certain cases and really sad that there's no resolution. I think it's very human in us. We always want an answer, and the thing that you can do in a crime fiction book is give an answer at the end, even if it's not quite neat and tidy, and it just doesn't often necessarily come in real life in some of these cases. And so yeah, that's sort of where my interests lie. I think I find it quite difficult to write the criminal's point of view. I have to push myself to do that.
And I think it's where Cal kind of keeps finding his motivation in a way, isn't it? Because he's sort of helping those people who maybe haven't had the answers.
Yes, and he hasn't had the answers really, and he hasn't had the justice that he wants. So he's completely driven by that. And the very first scene I ever wrote for the books was the scene that's still in book one. It's not quite at the beginning, but where Cal is packing to go away on a case, and his wife is there saying, you can't go again, and if you go again, that's it, our marriage is over. And he goes, and I just had to think, you know, what would drive somebody to do that at such personal cost to themselves? And that's where his history came from, and his missing sister and his backstory, and those are the things that really haunt him. And yet I would say that he's quite conscious that he doesn't want that to destroy his life, and he doesn't want it to destroy the life of his daughter and the people around him. And there's that tension of, you know, am I making things worse for myself by always leaning into this pain and helping other people with their pain? Would it be better for him actually to have done something completely different? Probably, but he can't.
And also then that kind of sort of juxtaposition in him is back to when we go to him not always making the right decisions, because they're not always made out of like the best interests of himself.
No, he's quite emotional in that regard. So he does, yeah. He's not always his own best friend.
Yeah, he's definitely not his own best friend, is he? There's a lot of discussion about pets being harmed in books going on the stream.
Oh, cats?
No, pets. So I don't think you can do anything to Rocket. I think Rocket needs to stay okay until the end.
Yeah, no, it's well, my son actually is, and he doesn't read the books, he's a bit young for it, but he is one of these people that will not watch anything where anything happens to a dog. He doesn't want to know. So we've had to stop films and things in the past where he's like, no, absolutely not watching this. So I've always got him influencing me.
I think that's like, there is a website, isn't there? Is it called like Does a Dog Die or something? And you can
DoesTheDogDie.com apparently is what he looks at to decide whether it's acceptable to yeah.
And it will tell you if any animals are harmed. People get so obsessed with it though, don't they? And I think it's a weird thing in crime because we get so worried about the dog being okay, but we're kind of not that worried about the bodies that have been left laying around.
Yeah. I definitely, it just speaks to something in us, doesn't it? Like our connection with our pets and our connection with animals is like sort of an innocent part of us. I think that where so many other things are no longer innocent, or the world isn't great, you kind of, there's certain things that hit you and certain news stories that hit you as well. I think there's definitely some things I would find it very difficult to write about.
In kind of future stuff, so I know you're very passionate about writing the Cal series around Scotland, and I think that's sort of important because the location feels very much like a part of the books. as much as, you know, Hal and Chrissy and everyone else that are involved. Would you write things away from Scotland like another crime book? Do you think you'd go?
Yeah, I definitely. I
have.
have.
You got like a location in mind that you'd like?
So there is a particular book I'd like to write that, if I do go ahead and write it, would be set on the Isle of Wight. Because there's a particular thing, I won't say what it is, but there's a particular thing sort of specific to that location. I'm really inspired by location. So that's probably one of the first things for me, is landscape or setting. So I do have to kind of feel that it chimes. But yeah, I definitely would look at the book and work out there's quite a few ideas I have that are not necessarily Scottish ideas so much, although any opportunity to write about different bits of Scotland is always one I want to take.
Is that what came first for you with the books then? Do you, because it's so important, does the location kind of come to you and then you work the plot around it? Do you, or do you like have to search for the perfect location when you've got the plot?
So that has only happened with the 5th book, which has been really frustrating, actually. All of the other books have been very early location led, and I find that much easier because then I'm much more rooted in the place myself. The way it started with the 1st book was that I wanted to write a podcast story, and the kind of podcasts I'm drawn to are ones where there's a really isolated or remote community. There's a sort of bleak landscape where it's not policed in the way that a city would be in an urban environment. And so a lot of those podcasts are in places like America and Canada, where there's obviously vast swathes of land. And I didn't want to write about those places because I didn't know them very well. And so I was thinking, like, where could you have that kind of environment? And I grew up in rural Aberdeenshire, and it was just such an obvious, well, yes, I know this landscape really, really well. So that's where that started. The 2nd book, I had just been on holiday to the west coast of Scotland. I went to Pitlochry in the Shieldig Peninsula. And so that was really kind of at the front of my mind. And I set that particular book there. But then I wanted to do an Edinburgh one. I wanted to do a student. So I needed a big Scottish university, which left me Glasgow or Edinburgh. And I know Edinburgh much, much better than Glasgow. So it's this weird sort of process of elimination of places.
You don't want to go for Aberdeen University?
It's not. Aberdeen isn't as big as I needed it to be for that book. It's not. It's certainly not as anonymous. Not that Edinburgh would be anonymous, but Aberdeen is quite. I went to school in Aberdeen, in the centre of Aberdeen, and so I do know it very well. But it's not got a massive student population.
Yeah, I mean, where I went to university had the population of like a small village, I think. Like 20,000 students just in like our university, and there's like 2 others.
Wow. Yeah. It's
so, you know, like when the students are here, you know.
Yes. I think it's really interesting. So I think writing about students and student life and that time of life is really an interesting time. It's when people are almost deciding who they are a bit. It's probably the first time they've been away from home in that way, and that they're free to make their own decisions and mistakes in a way that they maybe didn't when they were living with family. So yeah, I think it's really ripe for crime fiction. And there are a lot of dark academia books, aren't there?
You kind of find your connections and things for the future as well, don't you? You know, like people that will stay with you through the rest of your life are sort of at that era.
Yeah. And a lot of people have this sort of dual existence where they're at university in the terms and they're very immersed in their new world and who they are, but then they also might go back to where they came from for the holiday periods, and are they still that person anymore, and how do they adjust to those relationships? And yeah.
My parents moved house as I was applying for university, and just like, well, we'll tell you where we moved to.
My mum did that when I went travelling. I came back from travelling and she no longer lived in Aberdeenshire.
Yeah, and you know, could be anywhere.
Yeah.
And then they ended up quite close to where I went to university, which is quite nice.
Oh, that is nice.
Completely accidentally, I think. Not.
Followed you. I'd be very tempted to do that with my children if they go to university.
Yeah, a little bit. They were close and then they moved again. And so I've had like a mixed bag with my parents where they've either been in like different countries to me and like quite far away, or they live in the same city, which is quite nice. And they live in the same city now, which is really nice.
Oh, that is lovely.
But that's not always been the case. Sarah said she only went to uni that was close to her mum and dad.
Oh, that's nice.
See, some people choose to live at home, don't they?
Yeah, that's true. And well, actually, more and more these days as well. Finances mean university's got a lot more expensive, hasn't it, these days?
It has, yeah. We've got completely sidetracked. Tell me what you've read recently and really enjoyed.
Oh, right. What have I read? I've just read the book that's coming out in January by Caroline Hulse, which is called Vivian Dies Again. And I basically begged shamelessly for a proof of this at Harrogate because Viper announced it, and I really love the premise. It's a sort of time slip thing where Vivian is murdered at a family event, and she doesn't see what she sort of pushed off something, and she ends up in a time loop where it happens 85 times, and she's got to try and work out who in her family hates her enough to want to kill her, and none of them like her very much. So it's incredibly funny. It's got this amazing balance between darkness and humor, and it's very, very clever. It's really, really good. I like that one a lot. What else have I read recently? I've been reading a few sort of proofs and friends early books. I've also read something called Juice by Tim Winton recently, which is a dystopian one. And I read The Names by Florence Knapp, which was absolutely brilliant. I really, really love that book. I've got a lot of hardbacks sitting because I'm terrible for buying hardback books, which are then really difficult to transport around with you. So I've been making myself have a hardback reading time, but I do still have a good pile of them. But I'm going on holiday soon, and I will not be taking any hardback books with me. I've got some on my Kindle that I've been lining up ready for going away.
I have a proof of Vivian Dies at the end. I got Harrogate.
Really good.
I'll have to move it up the TBR pile on your recommendation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's like, somebody was saying in the comments that you have to be in the mood for a particular kind of book. I think I'd done some reading over the weekend. I'd read some quite dark things. That Tim Winton book is very dark and kind of bleak. And I had something else lined up that I was going to read, and then I thought, you know what? I just want something that's a bit lighter. I want something, and even though it is a crime book, it's incredibly funny. Vivian Dies Again, and it was just exactly the right thing to read. And I had read it within 24 hours, even though I was quite busy.
What is your favourite dystopian book?
So I love The Stranding, the Kate Sawyer one I mentioned. I do love The Road. I've only managed to read it twice because it's just so harrowing to read. That's a favourite. Station 11 I really like as well. And then I read one called Under the Blue recently, which was incredibly clever, by Oana Aristide, I think. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it is a classic kind of end of the world type novel where people are sort of having to escape to little places in the countryside and hole up. And then interspersed with these sort of survival stories are these scenes of computer scientists teaching a computer about humanity. And it seems completely unconnected, but at the end of the book, it all comes together in a really, really clever way. And it was so thought-provoking that one's really stayed with me. And that is one I would like to reread. I think dystopia probably is the genre I reread the most because it just hits you at the core.
One of my favourites is On the Beach by Neville Shute.
Oh, wow.
I do like Station 11 quite a lot. Joe Furness has got a really good one as well, and I'm really the name of it.
All the Little Children.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's really, really good. It made me cry on a train. So that was embarrassing. Joe is a friend, and I did I did tell her off for that. I was like, I cried on a station platform.
I think she's so good at putting people in like a moment of isolation and then seeing how they deal with it. Even when it's not a dystopian book, she does it really well.
Yes. Her new book, Guilt Trip, I don't know if you've read that yet, but that's coming out in, I think it might be out next week. I think it's the 14th. And it is, brilliant. It's a crime novel, so it's not a dystopian story at all, but you definitely do have characters plunged into an isolating situation and mothers as well. She does motherhood really, really well.
Yeah, agreed. I think she's sort of an interesting person to read when it comes to that, if you want that sort of.
Definitely. Well, I've read Guilt Trip and it's brilliant, so I recommend that one. That's out next week.
Patsy says she's heard Under the Blue.
Yeah, definitely very striking novel and ideas, and I can't say because it will spoil the whole thing, but I had to talk to a friend who'd read it, and I think I had to make a friend read it. I have a friend who likes dystopian fiction as much as I do, and she reads very quickly, so she got a copy and read it.
Oh, that's good. I like a bit of sci-fi sometimes mixed in with it, so I quite like Annihilation as well, that series. Anything Jeff Vandermeer writes. And then there was a book, I think it was like one of my favorites, that was sort of not dystopian in the same way, but it was like the end of a community.
Okay.
Like an island kind of. Yeah. No, it was like it was called Mother Sea. It was an island nation sort of under threat, like the community kind of dying, if you know what I mean.
Mother Sea.
Yeah, I absolutely adored that. Like,
that sounds like my kind of book. I kind of need to remember that.
It wasn't a dystopian book in the same sense of like the entire world was ending. It was more just like this community being really under threat.
That sounds brilliant.
It was like a way of life kind of dying out that there wouldn't be again, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's still an interesting idea.
Definitely.
Remind people, we've got a couple of minutes left, but they're going to go and buy, because people are off to Amazon apparently. So tell them what they're going to Amazon to order.
This one. Well, you can buy any of them. They're all there. But yes, this is the new one. And it is Unknown, which is the 4th Cal Lovett book.
Which is, and if not, then the Tomorrow Project as well.
Yes, the Tomorrow Project also is there, and it's got spreads as well. So if you do get a hard copy, then it's got pretty spreads. So those are still out there in bookshops. If you want one of those.
That's going to appeal to lots of readers, isn't it? I think dystopian books especially work really well as graphic novels. Would you ever be tempted to have yours adapted?
Oh, that would be really cool. I have no idea how you even do that. But yes, they do. They work really, really well, don't they? I think Mouse. I don't know if you read Mouse. That's a graphic novel. Just incredibly powerful one.
And When the Wind Blows as well by Raymond Briggs. That's really powerful.
Yeah, I haven't read that one.
Nuclear war.
Right.
Well, don't read it on a train because it will make you cry.
Okay. Not train fiction. Yes.
I find it's really thin.
Oh, okay. So that would be, I probably find nuclear warfare books the hardest kind of dystopia. So I have to, those are ones I have to steel myself for. Having said that, Holly's 59 minutes. Amazing.
There's lots of it. G-Bone enjoyed the Tomorrow Project. Donna says, thanks, it's been fabulous. She's going to get a copy of the Tomorrow Project in sterling. Patsy is coming to see you in bloody Scotland as well, probably with books to be signed.
Amazing.
So you're going to get
Thank
all the
you.
people visiting you in sterling. You'll have a queue.
I will be around, so just find me. I'm not speaking at bloody Scotland, but I will be there. So.
Well, I mean, that's a good thing, though, isn't it, about book events? Because even if authors aren't speaking, if you know the author, you can still find them and talk to them about their books.
Definitely. I'll be propping up the bar at certain times, I'm sure.
Find them a drink. All that kind of stuff. It's all good. But yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me again. I really love chatting to you. It's really fun.
Oh, you're very welcome. Welcome at any time.
I'll write more books so I can come back.
Yes.